Howdy, howdy. Just getting set up for the live stream. Thought I'd open it up a few minutes early. Let people start showing up. Actually, I'm going to use this other pad. What's up, Alyssa? How you doing? Alyssa. Sorry, I think I said. I think I said Alyssa. You doing good? Good. I got enough battery power. I can do it without that. Says we got 3 people in here. I know I'm one of them. Alyssa, who's our third person? Mystery. All right, well, we can go ahead and start. It looks like it's just me and Alyssa. That might be because the others haven't even seen the notification in email or Slack. I know I kind of put this up last minute. So again, if you're tuning in after this has already been recorded, as you're going through it, You might just want to take a note of some timestamps as to when certain things happen in the video, so that if you do go back and watch it again, you won't have to sit there and like try and figure out when I'm just like talking extraneous amounts or whatever. So something else I would encourage you to do on your first time watch through especially is, excuse me, to have a pen and paper on the side, so that you're ready to write down anything that I say that might kind of strike a chord with you in a good way. I was planning on kind of introducing that as a thing for our rehearsals this semester, but we never really got to that point. But having a like rehearsal log to the side, so when we get to band camp, I'll kind of bring that back up. But yeah, like we should have our music on the stand, you know, whatever we're drumming with, and then something else to the side where you can kind of jot down some notes and stuff, just to help retain information. So hopefully during that time, if you didn't already have a pen and paper or pencil or whatever, you were doing that, and now you have something to write with and something to write on. So I think what I'd like to do is go down and just do a quick review from the last rehearsal. And I'm just going to play down the basic exercises page, each exercise about 4 times. And I might even just throw out some big things in each that you should remember to focus on. But it's going to go way faster. We're not going to spend an hour and a half on it. So I'm going to back it down to 80, just so it doesn't go over anybody's heads. All right, so letter A, making sure to rebound every single note. Every note should be the same volume. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Five, 6, 7, 8. Five, 6, 7, 8. Last time. Okay, so that was just a little review as well, just the procedures that we go through in terms of the amount of counts, marking time, and when the last time is called, just being one note, stopping. Okay, so let's go on to B. This is Gallop. Hopefully I'll play it correctly. Okay, before we play that, we're going to do that one 3 more times. But the big points to remember on this one are the same as letter A, but now we're adding in non-diddled notes. So those non-diddled notes should be rebounded, just like the diddled notes are. Nothing is held down. And also make sure you're not accenting, either accenting the double or accenting the non-doubled notes. Everything should be the same volume. Do it 3 times. Things to think about on this one are the non-playing hand. When the right hand is playing, the left hand is down. When the left hand is playing, the right hand is down. The quarter note prep idea on beat 4. And when you do those quarter note preps, the tendency to accent that first note and to turn 8 on a hand into letter C. So 8 on a hand and letter C are completely different things. Make sure. Fortissimo. That's the forte. Piano. Still rebounding. Last time. Okay, so that brings up another point. Regardless of what dynamic we are at, when last time is called, you always come up and hit a fortissimo of hands, all of that, and we're just gonna, make the first note loud and the rest of the notes soft. Last time. Okay, so something that I shared with a few of you in private lessons that I think I forgot to say when I was doing the video 2 weeks ago on this exercise. One way that you can practice it is just play the first 2 of each hand. 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2. And make sure that that first tap is exactly the sound and the height that you want it to be. After that, you can add 1 more tap. 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2. So on. Then add a count. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and so on and so forth. And then you're ready to add the rest of the notes. So that you can break down what you are focused on, because as I've told you all a million times, you should focus on one thing at a time. So when you play that first note, you're just focused on the sound and the placement of that first tap. When you add the next one, you're trying to keep it in time, specifically doing that and getting to beat 2 right on time and with that proper foot. Then you're adding 1 more count. This time the focus should really be on the quarter note lift. So 1 and 2 and 3 lift. 1 and 2 and 3 lift. Then you're ready to put it all together and play the exercise of it. Okay, letter D. Starting with letter D, when we get to these inverted stickings where you've got a tap on a hand preceding an accent, bring the accent height down. If you were doing fortissimo, bring it down to like forte, maybe even down to mezzo forte, depending on the speed. The inverted nature of the exercise, even though the stick height will be lower, the sound should basically be the same. And I'll explain all that in person if you want it. But basically, especially when you speed it up, just the quickness that you have to play that note is going to make it inherently louder. anyway, so we'll just drop the height and keep the sound the same, and it makes it a little easier to do as well. So in letter E, really just focused on that last tap. And I don't really want you all playing this any faster than 80 right now. So if you do it at like 60 or 70, that would be even better to just really focus on this last note. And don't do what I just did. 4. Last time. Okay. So letter E we're on now. Now we're just doing that same thing, but we are playing it all on the same hand. So when you do letter E, do it all on the right hand and end with a right, and then do it all on the left hand and end on the left. I know it's written differently on the page, but that's how I want you all practicing it. So big thing is just making sure now that we're mixing upstrokes and downstrokes, that you're not pumping the arms on the taps. The taps are just a wrist turn, and then that last tap is an upstroke, and then the accent is a downstroke. So you've got all 3 stroke types in this exercise. So aside from having a consistent tap sound, leaving it all in time perfectly with your feet and all that stuff, you want to make sure that each stroke type is its own thing, and that you're not blending them by either downstroking all of the notes or by pumping your arm on all the notes. The arm should only be used on the last 8th note for the accent, and all the taps should be a turn of the wrist. All right, so let's do E. I'm going to do it off the right and the left twice, and then call it last time. And that was letter F. My apologies, we're doing letter E. And I'm going to start over. Left hand. Now both hands. I'm going to save some time here. Last time. All right, so that just makes another point. Even if what we're playing starts with a double stop is what that's called when you hit both at the same time. The last time you would still just raise the right hand and hit. So the last time is the same every time we play. So yeah, that's just to point out that in order to save time on some of this, you can do both hands at the same time. If you're going to do that, I strongly recommend, which I do anyway, that you practice in front of a mirror. And when you do these both hand things, you want to make sure that you know, you don't have something different going on one hand. Usually your dominant hand will be the right. So if anything, you're trying to make your left look and sound and act like you're right. So you can use the mirror to give you some instant feedback on what you need to change about your left hand in order to do the right thing. Okay, letter F. So now letter prep on the hand that's coming next, and it being exercise. So that's what we're focused on here, and we're just getting more accents on the same hand. Up, 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 up. Up, 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 up. Last time. All right, so you know, some of you might want to go back and rewind and play that one a lot. You'll notice saying the ups, because the timing of when the hand goes up is different, because in one instance you're doing it the eighth note prior is a lift, and when you go to the next hand, it's a quarter note prior. All right, so that's the main focus on that one. Letter G. This one I want you guys playing at fortissimo and focus on a nice healthy wrist turn. You don't want to open up the back fingers to do this. This is a wrist exercise. So once the hands come up and they drop down for you to play those first notes, leave them down. Don't try to play all the notes like this. You lift for the first notes just to get that energy and weight, that potential energy, and you're turning it into kinetic energy. So once you get the kinetic energy, when you come down, leave the hands down and let that kinetic energy just push and bounce it like you're bouncing a basketball. So I'll do once off the right, once off the left, once off the right, once off the left, last time. Lift. Down, down. Last two notes are downstrokes. Lift. Down, down. Down, down. Last time. All right. So another thing you want to really think about on G is the double prep idea. All the way up until this point, the hands have been pre-separated. I know on A and B they're playing at the same time, but they're an eighth note apart. Here the hands are really close together. So when you lift on beat 4, you basically want to lift both at the same time. But you notice when I do a right hand lead, my right is just barely in front of the left, and then same thing when you do a left hand lead, your left is just barely in front of your right as you lift it. But really, like they're moving at the same time as a unit. Just one is slightly ahead, as if you were just kind of pulling somebody along in the water or something. Okay, so I'll play H. Again, I'm not going to say a whole lot about it just because we haven't gone over triplet timing yet. So I'm just going to play H. And if you know those rhythms and stuff, then feel free to try and play along. I might have to look down at the page on this one. So main things to work on when you're doing these isolated flams is to keep the grace note down. My grace notes are pretty good. I was definitely lifting a little bit, like on the majority of them. I'm seeing on the camera right now. But yeah, you can keep it lower than like a typical 3-inch piano tap height, then you're doing pretty good. And that's what you should aim for. So yeah, you've got your like playing set position. The grace notes should just be dropped right into the head, placed right before the primary stroke, which is that accent. So close together, but not the same sound. So you want to get the grace note as close to the primary stroke as you can without touching it. When you touch the primary stroke with the grace note, that's called a flat flam. We don't want flat flam. So we have double stops when both hands are playing the same volume. Then you have a flat flam where they're playing at the same time, but one is softer than the other, and then you've got flams. And also you have mouths, which is a backwards flam. So the primary stroke is first. So that's the grace note is actually accented, and the primary stroke is unaccented. So a little tidbit for you there. Okay, so let's take a little mental break. We just did about 25 minutes on a review. So I'm just going to drink some water and hang out for a minute. You guys can go get a snack or water or something. And I will start back in a couple minutes on eighth note timing. If you don't have a pencil and a piece of paper, now would be a great time to go get it. Or to print the music out if you don't already have it. Alyssa, you have any questions? Got any insight? Or, see, we've got 2 more people in here. I don't know if you're current members or if you're just subscribers to the page. This video is really just for the members at this point. Anybody have anything to say? By the way, this, I guess not. Nope, great. So this camera, this phone right here that you're seeing is what I use to record the Scott Drummer Jameson videos for YouTube and such. I've got that account logged in on my cell phone so that I can see the chat that's going on. And then my computer is doing the webcam. I think if West Springfield could get 1,000 subscribers, we could do the live feed through one of the cell phones. And the stick blur and all that probably wouldn't be as much of an issue. Yeah. So the cool thing is, since we're doing this, if we stick with the same kind of audition schedule, these can be great resources to supplement the future rehearsals that we have. So I don't know, I might have to talk with Mr. H and see. It might be a good idea to have fewer in-person rehearsals in the spring and just tell the freshmen, the upcoming freshmen, to just check these videos out in between or something. I don't know. Kind of just thinking out loud. But nothing lights the fire like a in-person rehearsal, though. So probably won't get rid of any of those. But either way, these would be a great resource. All right, so I think we're about 30 minutes in. So just, first time watch through, make a note of the timestamp on it. So if you want to come back and watch, you don't have to sit there. Okay, when did break in? Okay, so eighth note timing and variations. So we're not going to get into the weeds too much, but I'm just going to open up Pandora's box on a few concepts for people that have done this before. So if you've been through some of these spring sessions before, something that you can start working on, if you haven't already, is the quarter note prep idea in context now. So not only quarter note prep on the first note that you play, but on every note that you play on the page. So that would mean that on like number 2, you would start to lift on the and of 4 prior to the exercise. If you're on number 4, you would start lifting on the and of 1 before you play on the and of 2. Upcoming freshmen, I have no expectation that you will do that. That is kind of higher level. If these notes are easy for you and you feel like you're basically, playing it without any problem, then you can kind of think about some of that. But if it's too much for you to comprehend and like think about, don't worry about it. 10th, 11th, and 12th graders upcoming, you definitely should be thinking about this stuff. Because you visually are what they are going to try to play like, right? So we want to get the new folks playing in that prescribed way, and they might not even be like thinking about it or processing it. But that's how we can do it. So when we get in person, you guys are nailing exactly when I want you to move, and then all I have to do is tell them like, hey, try to move like such and such or so and so, or what's a who's-he or who's-he, what's-he. All right, so yeah, if you can think about it, quarter note prep on all these notes. I'm probably going to mess some of it up today because I don't play this stuff as much as you guys do, having to get it ready for an audition. So especially at a slower tempo, it's hard to really time those exactly perfectly. So I'll do my best. So something else that I want the 10th through 12th graders to really focus on, as well as not only the timing of the lift, but the technique of the lift. So, breaking with the wrist and not just turning the hand via the wrist. You want to lead with the wrist, not lead with the beat. So you got timing and motion, which is really what these exercises are for, not just like rhythmic timing. Some other things to look out for in general on all these is to make the same sound regardless of what hand you're playing on. So you don't want to play the right hands all like really loud and then the left hand soft. You also don't want to just like accent certain downbeats. Like in number 10, the tendency might be, or number 12, like a something like that, or like number 13. Right. So some other stuff that I've heard is number 12 again, getting within the same hand, like pulses. So like a, or, right. So we don't want any of that. We just want quarter note preps on all notes sounding the same. Every downbeat is on a right hand, every upbeat is on a left hand, and you just go and do all the variations. So so the laundry list that I just kind of came up with is just an example. If you find yourself lacking in some ways that I might bring up, keep a list, and what you can do is say like, okay, I'm going to practice number 6, and I'm going to focus on this first thing on the list, and I'm going to do it 4 times in a row. Correct. Then I'm going to move on to the second thing on the list. Even if the first thing on the list is now bad because I'm focused on the second thing, just focus on that one thing. And over time, if you'll do that, I promise you will get better. The people that spin their wheels, that, burn their wheels, whatever, the people that don't do that and they try to cut corners and they just end up playing sloppy and basically a waste of time. So focus on one thing at a time. All right, 8th note timing. We're going to take it line by line and then section by section. So we'll do 1 through 4, as in 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we'll put those together, 1 through 4. Then we'll do 5 and 6 separately. Then we'll put together, and then so on and so forth. It's called blocking. So number 1. Lift, 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 lift. Again. Lift, 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 lift. Lift, 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 lift. Focus on the non-playing hand as well. Lift, 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 lift. Number 2. 1, 2, 3. Lift, no. Lift, 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 lift. Make sure and get that quarter note lift for the last note. Lift. 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 Number 3. Lift. 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 Now, second to last right is a rebounded stroke. Lift. 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 Up. Down. Lift. 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 Up. Down. 4, left, 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 left. One through 4. Last time. Great. All right. So yeah, just did 1 like 4 times, 2 4 times, 3 4 times, 4 4 times, and I think we did 1 through 4 maybe 3 times. I may have cheated on that one. Cool. How's it going, Daniel? Good to see you made it. Yeah, no worries. Like if you're not able to watch these live, that's why we're doing it via like YouTube, is so that you can go back and watch it. So no worries at all. Yeah, so that's one thing to consider is when you do these one line at a time, you always put that release on the end, on the right hand on the downbeat. But then when you play them in context with each other, you don't have that extra note all the time. So make sure you're not erroneously doing some extra lifts for a phantom right hand that no longer exists in relation to that line. And then the other thing is line 3. We brought up while we were playing, and by we I mean me, myself, and I, that the second to last right hand is a rebound stroke, right? So we still, in this one, we have upstrokes in that we're coming from playing position to do an accent. And then we have downstroke where we need to control the stick down after we play. But we also have rebound strokes. And the further you get in the page, the more rebound strokes you're going to have because there are more notes. So the rule is if you play on one hand, like 2 notes are a quarter note space apart, either you're playing a downbeat into another downbeat or an upbeat into another upbeat. I call the and of the count the upbeat sometimes. It's intermingles, either the and or the upbeat. I call them this, but it's the same thing. So yeah, you might have consecutive upbeats, in which case you want to rebound those notes like you're bouncing a basketball. You don't want to push the ball down and hold it down and then pick it up and push it back down again. You just want to let it rebound and bounce. So that's what we're about to get into with 5 and 6. So we'll do 5 4 times, 6 4 times, and then 5 and 6. That last one's a downstroke. Lift. Up, 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 down. Lift. Up. And that non-playing hand is that playing position. Once the potential energy turns kinetic, keep the hand down. Go into number 6. And try and give that last right a full quarter if you can focus on that. If you can't, don't worry about it. Five and 6. And lift. Lift. Up, 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 down. Lift. Non-playing hand is down. Last time. All right. So again, once you come up for that initial lift and you rebound, the hand stays down. Don't continue to raise the hand and play all those notes super loud. Another tendency that you might want to write down and just check out and see if you notice if it's you or not is when you start thinking about keeping the non-playing hand down, sometimes the tendency is to then lower the height of the other hand. So you accidentally do both hands real low. So you'll, if you were playing like this, and you say, whoa, this one's too high, you need to get this one low. Sometimes people do this. And they start playing softer. So you want to play loudly and get the lifts and everything, but just the hand that's not playing is low. All right, let's do 1 through 6 now. Last time. Sweet. So yeah, this is called blocking. I said that under my breath a little earlier, and it's something that you all should do. It's a memorization trick as well as a form focus trick. When you get a new piece of music, what you want to do is play it in small chunks. So you might play like the first bar, and if you can't get through the first bar, slow it down. And if you can't get through the first bar with it slow, try to play the first count. If you can't get through the first count, try to play the first eighth note. I've had to break music down to like a 16th note or an eighth note, depending on how much rhythmic density is there and what kind of weird motion or something is happening. So you'll break it down to the increment that you can process in a palatable way. Whatever you can repeatedly do well, that's how slow you need to play it or how small you need to break it down. So I try to program this program for you guys in that way. So we start out with the basic exercises sheet. We're getting the motions, the downstrokes, the upstrokes, the lifts, and all that. It's written in a very specific way. And then we try to program into more complex things like the eighth note study, triplet, and then 16th notes. That is an example of just blocking. It's taking something like a mountain and reducing it to each individual step that you need to climb up that mountain. So that's how you can approach your general practice, but also memorization. So I know especially upcoming freshmen and even parents sometimes reach out and say, okay, I've never really had to memorize music before. How do I do it? That's how you do it. You just play one count a million times until you can't play it wrong, add it to the next, then go on to the next measure. Do the same thing to that measure. Go back, add it to the first measure. Okay, and do the next two bars like that. Okay, now review and put all four bars together. Then do that same process with the next four bars. Now put those four and those four together in 8. And use block it and block it and block it until you can't play it wrong. That's the point. It's not to eventually get it right or to say like, I'm going to try to get it right most of the time. It's you should do it in a way where you basically never play it wrong. Because each time you play something incorrectly, you're ingraining something in your neurons about how you're like mapping that in your brain, and it can do harm. The more times you do it incorrectly, the more chance that it will be that you're going to have a hard time doing it correctly. So that's why I always say focus on one thing at a time and to break things down and slow them down as much as you need to not make a mistake. Even though we know that all of us are going to make mistakes. The point is to try to reduce the amount of mistakes that you ever make. Yeah. So we just did 1 through 6. Now we're going to do 7 through 10 and individually. Then we'll do 7 through 10. And then we will go back and add it to review what we've done before and put it in context again. Starting with number 7. Oh, by the way, motion-wise, 7 through 10 are like the easiest ones, unless you're Henry. Henry had a lot of issues with this, but he's all good to go now. But yeah, everything is a downstroke and then an upstroke followed that. So it's all double, so it's down, down, up, down, down, up, up. So every rest that you have in this will be an upstroke, and every note that you play in these will be a downstroke. Except for if you've got a quarter note right going into the release, in which it won't be a downstroke, it'll be a rebounded stroke to go and play that last right. 7. 8. Up, up. See how I rebounded that last right. Up, up. Up. 9. Up, up. Up. 2. I looked at it early. 10. Left. 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 Seven through 10. I haven't played it right so far. Last time. All right. You just take a little brain break and then add it to 1 through 6. So when you are blocking, as the blocks become a little bit bigger, you will want to take a few seconds at least in between, just kind of stretch out, maybe loosen your jaw up a little bit. My jaw gets tight, shake it out, whatever. So while we're doing that, one thing to bring up that you might want to write down, if you're not already doing it, is especially if you're having problems with the timing aspect of this in terms of getting all this hand-foot coordination happening, is make sure that you're practicing where you can hear the metronome, you can hear your drum pad, and you can hear your feet hit the ground. If all those things aren't true in how you're practicing right now when you're doing this, try to change that. So if you're wearing earbuds for your metronome and you can't hear yourself play, that's a bad thing. If your pad is really, really loud and you can't hear the metronome or your feet, then that's bad. So you want to, if you do have a loud pad, then you can play really softly and or at the edge to make sure that the timing of what you're playing is fitting in with your feet and your net. It's all got to be interconnected. But number one on the priority list before the hand timing and the motion and all that stuff is that your feet are hitting with each beat. So you might want to practice these without moving the feet, and then maybe practice clapping them so that you're not focused on right versus left or any of that other stuff that we kind of put in one box. You're literally just trying to get your feet to be to the quarter note and the timing of how you're thinking about where these rhythms line up in relation to the downbeat. After that, after you've worked those things separately, then you're able to focus on the one thing, which is putting them together. So you're still only focused on one thing at a time, even though like 10 things are happening all at once. You've worked them all out separately, then you're just focused on putting them together. Just like the blocking, you work each one and then you focus on putting them all together in a sequence. So now we're going to do 1 through 10. We'll only do this one twice because they're getting a little long. So if you need more reps on any of this, you have it recorded and you can go back and rewind if you want to. 1 through 10. All right. So now we're just going to take another little mental break real quick, not very long, and then we'll do 11 through 14. Then we'll probably just take a little break and then do 15 and 16. It'll go by real quickly. We'll put all 6 of those together, and then we'll try doing the whole thing. So remember, if this is your first time trying to do this stuff, when I'm saying like lift at specific times and rebound and all that kind of stuff, like if that's way too much for you to think about, then completely discard it and just try to get the timing happening, the sticking happening, and your feet happening with the downbeat. That's all you need to be concerned with at this point. If you are playing these with variations, snares and tenors. The with taps and the tap roll variation, the motions are the same. Whether you're playing it with taps, or tap rolls, or something like that, the upstrokes still happen at the same time. The timing of it's all the same. So that's part of why I teach those specific motions without taps, is so that you don't really have to change anything when you add taps in. However, when you add grace notes into the mix with flams, all those motions, most of them go bye-bye, because something that might be rebounded or something all of a sudden is held down in order to play a grace note, especially once you get past 1 through 6. Yeah, not so much 7 through 10, but yeah, definitely 11 through 14 are like way different when you add grace notes. Any questions before we start going on? Am I overlooking anything? Are we good? I know this is probably like mind numbing, which is why we're taking little breaks. Y'all paying attention at all? I'm assuming no noose is good noose. All right. Thanks, Alyssa. Okay. So let's do 11 through 14, quick break, 15 and 16, then put 11 through 16 together, and then the whole thing. 11. All rights are rebounded. Left, left, left. Left, 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 down, left. Last time. Okay, so sorry I had to break the sequence here, but the big thing about 11 through 14 is that 11 and 13, the right hand is rebounded, and 12 and 14, the left hand is fully rebounded. The other hand is just doing a lift and then a downstroke, lift and downstroke. So basically, what you should think about is the right hand, or the right hand is either doing number 5, or the left hand is doing number 6. And you're simply adding another hand in between those that's doing a downstroke. That's how I think about that. So we just did number 11. Let's move on to number 12. And just keep that in mind. So 12, all the left hands are rebounded. The right hand is a downstroke and a lift. 12. Lift, lift. Lift, lift, lift. Lift, lift. Lift, lift. Lift. $13. Now the right hand rebounds. Lift, 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 lift. Lift, lift, lift. 13. Sorry, 14. Lots of rebound strokes at the end. Lift. Up, up, down, down. Lift, lift, down, down. Through 14. All redone strokes except for the last two. Down, down. 1, 2, 3. Up, up. While I'm playing these notes, down, down. After the hands are in motion, the hands stay down. Lift, lift. Beads up, hands down. Down, down. Down, down. And 16. And 16. Lift, lift. Down, down. Lift, down. Lift, lift. Down, down. Lift, down. 11 through 16. last time. All right. We'll take a little brain break here before we try to do the whole thing. So before we try that, what I want to do is go back and just play 1 through 10 once to kind of just review and get that back in our head. Then we'll do 11 through 16 once, and then we'll try to put them together. So something else that you can do if you're having trouble like starting to link these, like say you can do number, what's a good one? Like 11 well by itself, and you can do 12 well by itself while you're having trouble putting them together because of that motion change where one hand is rebounding and then it turns into the other hand is rebounding and there's that exchange. You can do 11 and then just the first count of 12. And you can even do it without the met, just work on the mechanics. Or even just the first two notes of number 12, that down, up, down, down thing. So, iron those out and then add another count on the other end of it, and then you're off to the races. But if you don't take the time to actually analyze what is causing your mistake and then fix it, you're just going to be aiming at a moving target or trying to hit bullseye with a blindfold on, and you don't know if the dartboard is even over here or if it's back here, right? So, just a word to the wise. Yeah, Caleb had a good point, which is why I like Dr. Wooten's Throwdown book, and I recommend that for everybody. Is it's got like 1,000 different music tracks that you can play along to. So just find one that's in the time picture that you're going for, and all that good stuff. You can, listen to radio tunes and all that, but like bands like Metallica and Santana and stuff don't play to them because they don't play with a steady beat. Most artists do stuff to a quick track now, so it's all pretty, standard straight beat. But just look out because if you start to separate in terms of time, it might not be your fault. The band might have just sped up or slowed down or something. So, but yeah, if you need something to play along to, I can definitely encourage that, especially when I'm chopping out, like when I'm just working my muscles, playing threes and rolls and playing passages and all that. I'll definitely try to find like an upbeat song that's going to light a fire under me, just because I don't want it to sound bad, so you can do that. All right, so let's go back and do 1 through 10 once, then we'll do 11 through 16 once, and then we'll do everything once. 1 through 10. Through 16. last time. Okay. So, we'll now try the whole thing. I definitely remembered some things that I needed to work on as we played through that. So, yeah, this is good regardless of how good you are or how talented you are, how skillful you are, whatever you want to call it. All this is like fundamentals are fundamentals regardless of how good you are. So if you ever think that you're too good to play something, then that's probably an indicator that your mind is not in the right place. Every year that I teach you guys this stuff, I get a lot better at this stuff. It frees my hands up way more when I'm playing. It gives me more of a conscious awareness of where my sticks and my hands are as I'm playing, and that's invaluable when you get into more rhythmically dense things and harder material. If you don't know mechanically and physically what you're having to do to create the sounds and the notes that you want, you're kind of behind the eight ball. And you could be harming your body um, just not because you're not aware that you're like causing tension or you're downstroking unnecessarily, you're creating way more work. So the thought is if you do all this and you move with more efficiency, um, then it should look extremely easy regardless of how difficult a passage is that you're playing. So we program these motions in so that you can relax as much as possible while you play. So obviously we're not going to get to triplet timing today. So we'll just say, in about 5 minutes, this one will be up. So we will have done one on the basic exercise sheet, and then this one is a review of that into eighth note timing. So in 2 weeks, we'll do the triplet timing. So the thought is that you guys are actually practicing all of this stuff in between these videos. So the goal shouldn't be like just watch the video the Friday night before the next one comes on. Try and watch it as soon as it's posted to give yourself more time to work on these things. There you go. Otherwise, you're just 2 weeks behind everybody else. So, all right, let's try the whole thing, 1 through 16 of eighth note timing with variations. And then in 2 weeks, when we do the triplet timing, we'll spend a little bit of time, a little less than 30 minutes to review the basic exercise sheet. We'll probably take about 30 minutes to review the eighth note timing that we're doing today. And then the rest of the time will be on triplet timing. So I'll play this and see if anybody has any extra comments, and then we'll be signing off. All right, and there you have it. I found myself actually daydreaming about halfway through that, and I messed up on going from line 10 to 11. Just something to point out for those of you looking at the motion specifically, that last left hand and the whole line of number 10, you're playing downstrokes with that left hand. However, the last left on 10 should be a rebound stroke because you're going right into another note on the left in line 11. So that's kind of just one of those examples where just because you can play the line by itself and the other line by itself doesn't mean that you can play both of them correctly next to each other. So food for thought. Yeah, Caleb brought up, these basically these are designed for the upcoming ninth graders. Every year, whoever is going to and targeting the basers, because all of your splits I write will be eighth note based or triplet based. So if you can master these like simpler rhythms, then we just tell one person like, okay, you play on the downbeat, you play on the upbeat, you play on the next downbeat, you play on the next upbeat. Do that, okay? And then that's where we get our melodies and the bass line from. And then okay, now yours is quarter note. Yours is yours is an eighth note. Yours is 2/16. Yours is an eighth note, and yours is a fast three, a triplet. So bum bugga bum bugga, right? So that's kind of where we get a lot of the more interesting bass parts from, is like this stuff. So if you can't do this, then you can't do the tonal bass drum thing because you have to play broken rhythms and all that stuff. So good point from Caleb. Another point that I'm going to make is that the 16th note timing video will be after the triplet timing video, and it will mostly be review, I think, of all the other stuff, and I might even put some rudiments in there. I'm not sure. Because the 16th note timing sheet is the same thing as the 8th note timing sheet. You just have to think about your foot is basically marking time to the half note. So that turns the 8th notes into 16ths, and we're off to the races. At that point, we're just focused on the same motions, the same timing things. It's just a little bit different relationship between the feet and the hands. And so like 50 beats a minute of the 16th note timing would be the same thing as 100 beats a minute on the 8th note timing. So we need to, before we work on the 16th note thing in like a month, you should definitely be able to play all these 8th note patterns at least 120, if not 160, which is twice as fast as we're playing them now. That will enable you to play the 16th note patterns at 60 or 80 beats a minute. So if you're between 120 and 160 on your ability to play basic 8th note patterns correctly with your feet, then you're ready to play 16th note patterns at 60 to 80 beats a minute. Anything else before we sign off? I hope everybody's doing well. Maddie and I are doing great. T has been down in Stafford this week with his grandparents, so we've had a kind of a week off. Been playing a lot of video games. Maddie's been doing a lot of reading. We got some house stuff done. Nice little vacation. So the hope is that we can just all stay safe. Right? So look forward to seeing everybody, and thank you for joining in. And we'll see you again in a couple weeks.